students, welcome back. In the previous video, we learnt about the 5 kingdom classification and explored the kingdoms Monera and Protista. Through this video, we will further explore the characteristics and classification of the kingdoms Fungi, Plantae and Animalia. When we think of a fungus, the first image that usually springs to our mind is that of a mushroom, isn't it? Mushrooms vary in their sizes and colors. Are you familiar with the name toadstools? Toadstools are poisonous mushrooms. The fungi kingdom exhibits a wide range of morphological diversity. That means they differ in their shapes and sizes. Not only in morphology, fungi shows a wide variety in their living habitats as well. There are about 99,000 species of fungi are distributed throughout the world. For example, white spots on the mustard leaves are due to a fungus. Another familiar example is yeast that is used to make bread or cake. Some fungi cause diseases in plants and animals like Puccinia causes wheat rust. It can attack stem and leaves. Infected wheat plants may produce shriveled grains. Penicillium is a useful fungus known for its role in making antibiotics. Fungi can be seen everywhere in air, water, soil and on plants and animals. Why are we storing food items in the refrigerator? This is to save our food from fungi as fungi grow fast in warm and humid atmosphere. Now let's see the structure of fungi. Except yeast cells which are unicellular, all the other fungi are filamentous. See here, their body consists of long, slender, thread-like structures. They are called hypha. A group of hyphae is called mycelium. Some hyphae are called koinocytic hyphae. Koinocytic hyphae are continuous tubes having cytoplasm and many nuclei inside them. They are multinucleated. They do not have divisions within the tubes. Here we cannot see divisions between the nuclei. However, in other hyphae, there are divisions or walls called septa which divide the hyphae into many cells. Their cell walls are composed of chitin and polysaccharides. This is one of the major differences between fungi and plants, as plants have cellulose on their cell walls but fungi have chitin. Now let's learn about the nutrition mode. Fungi are heterotrophic in nature as they cannot prepare their own food like plants. They are called saprophytes. That means they can absorb the soluble organic matter from the dead substances. They break down complex organic materials into simple forms. Some fungi are parasites as they depend upon living plants and animals for their nutrition. They can also live as symbionts. Symbiosis, as you know, is a relationship between two biologically different species where both the organisms get benefited. Fungi can live in symbiosis with the roots of many higher plants. These kinds of fungi are called mycorrhiza. Here you can see this is the fungi in the plant roots. When they live in plant roots, they can absorb the nutrients from plants like carbohydrates and glucose. In return, these fungal hyphae increase the surface area of the plant roots to absorb more water and nutrients from the soil. Lichen is a symbiotic relationship between a fungus and an algae where the fungus provides protection to algae and algae can prepare food for fungi as they are photosynthetic. Thus, both the organisms get benefited from symbiotic relationship. Reproduction in fungi can take place by these methods. Vegetative means asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction. Vegetative reproduction is a kind of asexual reproduction where a part of the organism gets detached from the parent and grows into a new individual. In fungi, vegetative reproduction happens by means of fragmentation, fission and budding. In fragmentation, a mature organism breaks into two or more fragments and develops into a new organism. Here, a hypha got detached from the mycelium and develops into a new mycelium or a new fungus. In fission, a single cell undergoes nuclear division and divides into two cells. This can be seen in yeast. Budding. Budding occurs in most yeast and in some filamentous fungi. This is an yeast cell. In this process, a bud develops on the surface of either the yeast cell or the hypha, with the cytoplasm of the bud being continuous with that of the parent cell. Here you can see this cytoplasm is continuous with the bud. The nucleus of the parent then divides. One of the nuclei migrates into the bud and the other remains in the parent cell. This is budding. Now we can see many buds. All these are asexual reproduction only, where the new organism develops from the vegetative part of the fungus. That is why it is called vegetative reproduction. Now there is another means of asexual reproduction called spore formation. These spores are known by different names like conidia, sporangiospore or zoospore. No need to worry about these names now. We will get into the details later in this video. A spore is a biological particle which can be grown into a new organism. Let's take the example of the mushroom. Here, the spores are produced by the gills under the umbrella of the mushroom. Are you familiar with the gills? When we see under the cap of the mushroom, we can see some linear structures. These are the gills. They produce dust-like spores which can be carried away by the wind or water. And when the environment is suitable, they can grow into a new mushroom. Now let's learn about the structure of mycelium. This is the structure of a mycelium in fungi. This one is hypha and a group of hyphae is known as the mycelium. And this is a fruiting body which is known as the sporangium. If the spores are formed inside the sporangium, they are called endogenous spores. So if these spores are formed inside, you can see spores inside this sporangium. They are called endogenous spores. And if the spores are formed outside, they are called exogenous spores, like this. They are formed outside the sporangium. They are called exogenous spores. Zoospore is an endogenous and motile spore with a flagellum. Non-motile spores are called aplanospores. Zoospores are motile spores and they are formed inside the sporangium. That is why they are called endogenous spores. And non-motile spores are known as aplanospores. Please register these new terms in your mind as they will be crucial for our depth in understanding the subject. Now let's learn about the sexual reproduction in fungi. This is carried out by sexual spores known as oospores, ascospores and basidiospores. Now you might be wondering how this is possible. How the spores are produced by both asexual and sexual means? Let me explain. The spores that are formed by mitosis are called asexual spores. You all might be familiar with mitosis. It means one single cell divides into two daughter cells. Here, only one parent is needed for the production of a new individual, and that is why the spores produced by mitosis are called asexual spores. But the spores produced by meiosis are called sexual spores. They are haploid in nature. That means they have only half the number of chromosomes or only one set of chromosomes. Here you can see this is a diploid cell, and from this diploid cell haploid spores are produced. N represents haploid. If they want to grow into a new organism, another parent is needed. Because they have only half a number of chromosomes, they need another half to grow as a new individual or a new fungus. That is why they are called sexual spores. The sexual cycle in fungus involves 3 steps. First is plasmogamy, that is a fusion of protoplasm. Next, karyogamy, that is a fusion of nuclei, and then meiosis. Fusion of protoplasm between two motile or non-motile gametes is called plasmogamy. When two haploid hyphae of compactile types come close together, plasmogamy happens. Here, these are haploid cells and they have only one set of chromosomes. That is why they are known as haploid, and in each cell there is only one nucleus. That is why they are known as monokaryotes. When these haploid cells fuse together, their protoplasm gets mixed up. Here you can see the protoplasm got mixed up in these cells, and there are two nuclei in one cell. Now we can call them as dikaryotes. This phase is called the dikaryotic phase of fungi. Now both the nuclei fuse together to form a single nucleus, and this is a diploid cell now, 2N. Now the next stage is meiosis. The diploid cell forms 4 haploid spores and the cycle continues. Based on the morphology of the mycelium and the mode of spore formation, the fungi kingdom is divided into 4 classes: Phycomycetes, Ascomycetes, Basidiomycetes, and Deuteromycetes. Example of Phycomycetes is Rhizopus. They are found in aquatic habitats, decaying woods, in moist and damp places, or as parasites in plants. They have a septate mycelium, meaning there are no walls in between the nuclei of the hyphae and they are not divided into septa. The aseptate hyphae is also called koinocytic hyphae. Here, asexual reproduction takes place by zoospores or aplanospores. As we have already discussed, zoospores are endogenous, that means formed inside the sporangium, and they are motile, and aplanospores are non-motile spores. Sexual reproduction also takes place in Phycomycetes with the fusion of two gametes. The spore formed by the fusion of two gametes is called zygospore. When morphologically similar gametes, that means gametes with similar shape and size, fuse together, it is called isogamy. But when the gametes are different in size and form, then their fusion is called anisogamy or oogamy. The second class is called Ascomycetes. They are called sac fungi, and they are called so because during sexual reproduction, their hyphal tips form sac-like structures called ascus that bear sexual spores called ascospores. This is one ascus. If multiple ascuses are there, they are called asci. And inside one ascus, there are ascospores, which are the sexual spores. There are multicellular and unicellular Ascomycetes. They are saprophytic as they feed on dead organic matters. They are decomposers as they decompose the organic matter. They may be parasitic, living on other organisms, or coprophilous, that means living on the dung of animals. One example is Aspergillus, and here you can see the mycelium of Aspergillus is branched and septate, meaning hyphae are divided into cells with walls between them. Their mycelium is branched and septate. Asexual reproduction takes place by spores called conidia. Here you can see these are the conidia, and conidia are produced exogenously in special structures called conidiophores. These conidiophores can be grown into a new mycelium. Sexual reproduction takes place by spores called ascospores. We have already discussed that these ascospores are produced inside the sac-like structures called ascus, and these asci are arranged in fruiting bodies called ascocarps. Examples of Ascomycetes are clavicles and neurospora, Morels and truffles are edible members of Ascomycetes. They are kinds of mushrooms. Now, Basidiomycetes. Commonly known forms are mushrooms, bracket fungi. They are called bracket fungi because they form bracket-shaped fruiting bodies, and puffballs are called so because they have ball-shaped fruiting bodies. They grow in soil, on logs and tree stems. They are also as parasites in plants. The mycelium is branched and septate. Asexual spores are generally not found in Basidiomycetes, but vegetative reproduction by fragmentation can happen. That means a part can break off from the hyphae and can be grown into a new individual or a new mycelium. The sex organs are absent in Basidiomycetes, but sexual reproduction takes place by the fusion of two somatic cells. Somatic cells are nothing but ordinary cells other than sex cells. So, sexual reproduction happens by the fusion of somatic cells in Basidiomycetes. As we learned earlier, two somatic cells fuse together to form a dikaryotic cell, giving rise to a basidium. This is a basidium. And inside the basidium, karyogamy happens, that is the fusion of nuclei takes place, and next stage is meiosis. As a result of meiosis, haploid basidiospores are produced exogenously on the basidia. The basidia are arranged inside the fruiting bodies called basidiocarps. These are the fruiting bodies and basidia are found inside the fruiting bodies. Examples are Agaricus, Eusteligo and Puccinia. Puccinia is also called rust fungus. We learned about Puccinia earlier in this video, which causes wheat rust disease. An example of Deuteromycete is Alternaria. They are called imperfect fungi because they lack sexual cycle. As they lack sexual cycle, they are called imperfect fungi. Only asexual and vegetative reproduction takes place in Deuteromycetes. When sexual stages are identified inside the Deuteromycetes, the fungi are moved out of Deuteromycetes and placed under Ascomycetes. They reproduce asexually by forming conidia like that of Ascomycetes. The mycelium is branched and septate. Some are saprophytes and parasites, but a large number of them are decomposers and they help in mineral recycling. Deuteromycetes help in mineral recycling. Examples are Alternaria, Oletotrichium and Trichoderma. Now let's learn about the kingdom Plantae. Plants are eukaryotic organisms and they carry cellulose in their cell walls and can perform photosynthesis. They can be heterotrophic or parasites. Example of heterotrophic plants are insectivorous plants like Venus flytrap. An example of parasite is Cuscuta. The life cycle of plants have two phases, sporophyte and gametophyte. We all know that there are different stages in the life cycle of butterflies, right? First eggs, then worms, cocoons, and then butterflies. Similarly, plants have two distinct phases, gametophyte and sporophyte. Gametophyte bears gametes and sporophyte bears spores. Gametophyte is haploid in nature. It has only one set of chromosomes. But sporophyte is diploid, meaning it has two sets or complete set of chromosomes. When haploid gametes fuse together or when fertilization takes place, the gametes fuse together and form the diploid sporophyte. The sporophyte have spores. When they undergo meiosis, haploid gametes are formed, which is the gametophyte. This life cycle of plants alternating between sporophyte and gametophyte is called alternation of generation. Kingdom Animalia. Animalia comprises animals. They are multicellular, heterotrophic and eukaryotic organisms. They do not have cell walls like plants. They depend upon plants and other animals for their food. Their mode of nutrition is called holozoic nutrition. Here, complex organic matter is taken as food and digested into simple compounds for absorption. They digest their food in a cavity inside the body, mainly the stomach, and store the absorbed food as glycogen or fat. They follow a definite growth pattern like from child to adult, as in case of humans. When they reach adulthood, they will reach a definite shape and size. They are capable of locomotion and they reproduce sexually. In the five kingdom classification of Whittaker, there is no classification called viruses. Viruses are nothing new to us. We all have endured the devastating impact of coronavirus. Common flu is another viral disease. Viruses are not truly living. They are inactive outside a host cell. They cannot perform any activities outside a host cell, but when they enter the host cell, they will incorporate their own genome into the host genome and will make copies of themselves by killing the host cell. They are non-cellular organisms. That means they do not perform cellular processes like metabolism or growth outside a host cell. In 1892, Dmitry Ivanovsky recognized some microbes in the mosaic disease of tobacco. They were smaller than bacteria as they passed through the bacterial filters. In 1898, M.W. Bejernik took an extraction or liquid of the infected plants of tobacco and he observed that extraction can cause infection in healthy plants. Then he named the new pathogen as virus and called the fluid containing the virus as Contagium vivum fluidum. Later in 1935, W.M. Stanley showed that viruses could be crystallized and those crystals consist largely of proteins. In addition to protein, viruses contain genetic material. This can be either RNA or DNA. Viruses that infect the plants mainly contain single-stranded RNA and viruses that infect animals contain either RNA or double-stranded DNA. Bacteriophages are viruses that infect bacteria and they contain double-stranded DNA. The bacteriophage is made up of a protein coat called capsid. This capsid is made up of small subunits called capsomeres. This capsid gives protection to its genome or genetic material and the capsomeres are arranged in a helical shape which will give a helical shape to the bacteriophage. Example of viral diseases are mumps, smallpox and AIDS. Viroids. In 1971, Theo Diener discovered some organisms responsible for potato spindle tuber disease. They were different from viruses as they do not have a protein coat. It is simply an RNA. Hence it is called a viroid. The RNA of viroid has low molecular weight. Prions. They are responsible for some infectious neurological diseases. They have abnormally folded proteins. They are similar in size as viruses. Example of diseases caused by prions are bovine spongiform encephalopathy (BSE), commonly called mad cow disease in cattle, and C.R. Jacob disease, which is known as Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease (COD) in humans. It is a rare brain disorder that leads to dementia. Normal prion protein is found in the normal cells of the human body. However, when they encounter infectious prions, they will fold and become another shape, and this is not typical. Then they can spread and affect the processes in the body which leads to death. We have already learned about lichens a few minutes back, which is a symbiotic relationship between an algae and a fungus. The algal part is called phycobiont and the fungal part is called mycobiont. Algae can prepare food through photosynthesis, which the fungus can get benefited from, and in return the fungus provides protection to the algae. They are very good pollution indicators as they do not grow in polluted areas. Lichens do not have roots and they absorb all the nutrients from the atmosphere. Hence, a polluted atmosphere will lead to the death of lichens. That is why lichens are called pollution indicators. That's it about the chapter biological classification. If you like this video, please share it with your friends. If you have any queries, put it in the comment box. Thank you.